we are moving toward some clarity, which to me is a bit of a relief. We have the opening card today of the Seven of Cups. Our challenge today came in by way of the Magician. The way we're going to be getting through the challenge is the Empress card. And the overall outcome that we have for today is the lovely Ace of Swords. So it's interesting that we start off with this opening energy of this kind of cloudy view, right? We see this silhouette of a person reaching up into the clouds, and there's these 7 cups that are sitting there. And each one of them is filled with another possible aspiration for this individual. Do they want to chase after a partnership? Do they want to chase after riches? Do they want to chase after stability of a financial dream? Or do they want to chase after victory, right? We see all of these different goals or illusions of happiness that are filling these cups that appear to be just out of reach of this person. And this is our dono for today's reading, which in a lot of ways is kind of asking us to reflect on those things that we've put our energy out to in hopes that it would be bringing us this happiness that is settling in with a sense of sobriety, right? We're starting to see that which we desired didn't actually pan out to give us that which we thought it would. Now, the challenge that we have coming in today is the Magician. Now, the Magician is associated with the planet Mercury. Mercury is the messenger of the gods, also known as Hermes. He's the alchemist and the healer. And we see the alchemist here with their 4 tools. They have the sword, which is how they think about things, how they speak about things. The cup, which is their emotional center and their relationships. Then we have the pentacle, which is their physical world, their body, as well as their resources, and also the wand, which is all about their willfulness. But what we see is this person is actually holding their arm up into the sky as if they are a conduit, because the Magician is a conduit, just like you and I. But it's showing up as the challenge today because, interestingly enough, we just had Mercury going into retrograde yesterday. Now, let me just point at this diagram so you guys can understand why I feel so blown away by the cards that are on the table today. We have this horoscope of the sun, which is starting out in Capricorn. It's over at 9 degrees Capricorn today. Then we have Mercury, which I said just moved into retrograde yesterday. Mercury is at 23 degrees today. And you can actually see Mercury in the sky in the evening just after the sun sets, because if we watch the sun setting over here on the western sky, we can see that there's Mercury right here and Venus just maybe 20 degrees or 10, 11 degrees beyond the sun. So you'll see it literally like in the dusky light as the sun sets, depending on, of course, if you have buildings in the way or have access to being able to view the horizon. Now, as the sun sets, we'll also be able to see, depending on if you have the view and the ability to see Saturn. You'll also see Jupiter, which is over just at 1 degree of Aries today. And then you'll also see Mars, which is over in Gemini as the sun sets. And you'll be able to see those planets up in the sky. Now, what's interesting to me is this little grouping of planets here, which is Venus, Mercury, and Pluto, as well as this Mars energy over here, because it's in the sign of Gemini and Mercury governs Gemini. So consider that Mars is our planet of where we engage in life, where we feel called to action. And it's been in a place of retrograde for a couple of months. It will actually be moving out of retrograde on the 17th of January. So if you feel like a lack of clarity around which direction to move yourself in life, it's kind of like where Mars is right now. He's like taking a step back and he's like, okay, where is going to be the best use of my resources and my effort and my energy and my will. There's this place of re-strategizing that we're all doing right now in the place of Gemini, wherever Gemini is in your chart. I'm pointing upwards because for me, Gemini is in my 10th house. Now, this is really interesting, right? Because we have Mars, which is in the sign of Gemini in retrograde. And then we have Mercury, which governs the sign of Gemini, also in retrograde. So it makes sense that we're all sitting in this kind of cloudiness of like, which cup do I go after? And do I have the actual ability to follow through with it? And that is where we see this challenge of the magician on the table today, because he's in a place of evaluation. Now, it's interesting because the message in the card of the magician is typically like, it's time to act. You don't need to know exactly the path that you're going to be walking, but you have to start walking it. You will make the path as you go. But this is in our challenge position, right? And it's followed through with the sign or the card of the Empress, which is literally the planet of Venus. And so we have this grouping right now in the sky of Pluto, Venus, and Mercury, all within a couple of degrees of each other, which is called a conjunction, right? So it's like there's this big anchor in our astrological sky. Now, this is going to be more telling to you if you know where Capricorn is in your natal chart. It could be in the first house, which is going to affect your sense of self and what motivates you to go out into the world. It could be in the second house, which is around your resources. It could be in the third house, which is about relationships with family and community. It could be in the fourth house, which is your goals and aspirations around the home, because it's in the fourth house. So each of us has a natal chart when we were born, and all of the planets are in a specific placement when we were born, but that natal chart has 12 little sections within it, right? And each of those sections is called a house. Each one of those houses is associated with a certain area of your life. So having all of these anchors in Capricorn is like putting an anchor in that area of your life and calling your attention to it. Now, the sign of Capricorn is associated with our life path, our legacy, our reputation in front of the public. And yet it's going to be in a certain house in your natal chart, which will be even more telling. And so having these anchors there is asking us, you know, what does it take? What would it take for you to actually achieve the cup that you're reaching out for? And what kind of effort do you need to put toward that? Because our way through the challenge today is through the energy of the Empress, which is through the energy of the mother of the zodiac system. And it's asking us to really nurture and have discipline around that which we want to grow in our lives. This is also considered the doorway through which each of our passes, through each one of us passes, much like the doorway of the womb that we go out into the new world. So consider that this is like a gateway of sorts where you get the opportunity to acknowledge that which you want to transform in your life, and also set the intention to nurture and grow that which you want to actually bring into the world, because we have our way through the challenge of the magician as the Empress card. Now, our ultimate outcome that we have for today is the Ace of Swords. So that is actually a beautiful outcome, I think, for our card reading for today, because considering that we started with this cloudy kind of picture and around illusions and possibility, we have a sword as our ultimate outcome. And the way to cut through clouds is with a single sword. So rather than, you know, look at things that you're lacking or things that are giving you resistance in your life, look at possibility. Look at that which in you really wants to put your energy and your effort toward something, because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. And if you recall, earlier this year, I shared a story about a play that I had the idea to want to create. And it seemed like a wild hair of an idea for me to even consider as a possibility. And yet when I followed through with it, and when I actually, allowed myself to brainstorm around what it would look like to bring it into form, I got support by the outside world to help me bring it into form. And the ultimate outcome of it was that I got to perform the play with a number of other people. And that wasn't the most beautiful part of it. The most beautiful part was that my family came to see the play, and that was the last chance any of my siblings actually got to see my mom. So, I mean, it gets my anahata anytime I start telling this story or even referencing it. You can think the maple waters are like all settled, but they come out, when you speak about these things. But that was a very beautiful lesson that I gathered from my life, is that you can't be so certain around what you want the outcome to look like, because it can bloom into something much more beautiful than your mind thought was possible. So be careful around that in yourself, which tells you what's actually possible, because that certainty can be very, very limiting to the mind and to your ability to engage in the world. It's more important to consider that what we know as possible is far beyond what our minds can actually conceive of. And so in order for us to see what is actually possible from that seed that has been planted in your heart, that's been asking you to nourish it for however long, that it's time to nurture that seed. It's time to bring it into the world. And it is, in my observation, that we'll see a lot of movement in this when Mars starts moving direct in Gemini on January 17th. So right now is a good time to be in a place of contemplation and strategizing your energy and effort. And I can't wait to see what you bring in 2023. I send you all a good wish. I send you a lot of love and blessings and all that you want to create. Let's help rebuild a beautiful place to become. Happy New Year.